Hi, this is John. Today I will tell you about the movie Tusk. The movie begins with Wallace Brighton, played by Justin Long, a popular podcaster who co-hosts a show called The Nazi Party with his friend and co-host Teddy, played by Haley Joel Osment. While looking for new material for their show, Wallace comes across a viral video of a teenager accidentally cutting off his own leg with a samurai sword. Intrigued, he decides to travel to Canada to interview the teenager for his show. Upon arriving in Canada, Wallace discovers that the teenager has committed suicide, leaving him with no story to cover. He attends the funeral, upset about the missed interview, and goes to a local bar to have a drink and complain about the unfairness of it all. After a few bottles of beer, he needs to go to the bathroom, where he finds a strange notice on a board covered in similar leaflets. An old man offers free lodging to anyone willing to listen to his incredible life stories. This is exactly what Alice needs. She came to Canada for an incredible story for their podcast. The man arranges a meeting while buying a drink at a local shop and pouring it into an unjustifiably large plastic cup provided by local vendors. The guy asks for directions to the address given by the homeowner. When he finds himself in the wilderness, Wallace sees an antique mansion where Howard Howe lives. The owner greets him, sitting in a wheelchair, and offers him some tea. Field gladly drinks a couple of cups, listens to Mr. Howe's stories about his meeting with Hemingway, makes some unsuccessful jokes about the house and Howard himself. But Mr. Howe is difficult to upset. He continues to tell the story of his life. His parents were killed in front of him when he was little. Howard ended up in an orphanage where he was bullied. From there, he was sent to a psychiatric hospital where he experienced things that no one should ever try. However, that's not what Mr. Howe wants to talk about. In the woods, he is preoccupied with a different story. He decides to tell about the day he first experienced real horror. Howard Howe tells how he worked as a cook on the Anastasia ship that had crashed in the northern seas near Kamchatka. Howard was the only one who managed to survive in the icy waters. Holding onto a life buoy. He was in the water for a very long time. Eventually, a walrus saved him, and he ended up on an island where this huge animal lived. Howard would have died from cold, thirst, and hunger, but the walrus encouraged him and fed him. Mr. Howe doesn't get to finish the incredible and exciting story as Wallace starts to feel sick. He feels weak, his head is heavy, and his vision starts to fail. Finally, Howe realizes it's because of the tea. He tries to ask the homeowner something, but he can't and loses consciousness. While Wallace was unconscious, it turns out that he's not such a bad guy after all. Meanwhile, back in the US, Wallace's girlfriend Ally, played by Genesis Rodriguez, grows worried when she loses contact with him. She reaches out to Teddy, who tells her about the viral video and Wallace's trip to Canada. Concerned, she travels to Canada to search for him. Ally meets Guy Lapointe, played by Johnny Depp, a former detective who is also investigating Howard's mansion. Guy tells Ally that Howard is a dangerous serial killer who has been abducting and mutilating his victims for years. He also reveals that he has been tracking Howard for a long time and has a personal vendetta against him. Together with the detective, the friends follow Alice's trail. Learning that he likes to buy drinks in large plastic cups on trips, they come to a store where he had asked for directions. The saleswomen remember a funny American with a mustache. They give the detective a notebook in which Wallace wrote down the address of Mr. Howe. Lapointe finds out where they need to go. On the way, Alice and Ted discover Wallace's car, but Wallace himself is not in it. None of his friends know where the guy is. The detective hands out weapons, and the whole group goes to the maniac's house. They don't know what's going on in the basement with the pool, and it's better if they don't see it. Mr. Howe realizes that the time for battle has come. He tells Howe exactly his savior, the walrus, fed him and didn't let him die of hunger. Howard had to kill the Tusk and eat his meat just before the rescue ship appeared on the horizon. Since that day, Howard has regretted what he did. He considers the killed walrus the highest creature on the planet, and people, miserable and unworthy of life. Mr. Howe puts on a walrus costume made from patches of leather. Tusks made just like Wallace's are attached to his head, implanted in his jaw from his own shin bone. The battle begins, full of incoherent screams and the sound of blows. All the other versions of the Tusks were destroyed by Mr. Howe blows, which means that the deceased walrus was unable to avenge his killer. According to Howard's plan, the fight should be fair and equal. He didn't suspect that at that moment, Allison, Detective Guy, was panicking, searching for a friend, and so on. In his mansion. The Tusk and the man in the Tusk suit fought fiercely but briefly. At that very moment, when Allison and Ted found Wallace, he killed the old man, tearing his body apart with his tusks. What they saw terrified everyone, and he just looked at his friends covered in blood. There was nothing human in his gaze, only rage and pain. He mooed, Unable to say a word. The detective points the Tusk gun, preparing to shoot, and a scream is heard. It has been a year since that day. Ally visiting Wallace at an aquarium, where he now lives in captivity as a walrus. He lets out a chilling, otherworldly cry as the audience is left to confront the terrifying transformation he has undergone.